The Center for Teaching and Learning is showcasing faculty innovations in the classroom and creating a space for faculty members to share ideas and learn from each other's experiences. This is one of a series of informal conversations where we ask a faculty member to describe and sometimes demonstrate their innovative practices. We're speaking today with Cecilia Dong, Associate Professor in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department of the College of Engineering and Computing Sciences. Cecilia started at New York Tech in 2010. Before joining that, she was teaching at New Jersey Institute of Technology and Monmouth University as an adjunct professor. Even with the pandemic, Cecilia and her colleagues have continued the undergraduate research and entrepreneurship program by moving faculty-guided research online so students have a way to socialize and engage in meaningful research activities. Welcome, Cecilia.
Thank you, Fran. Good morning, everyone.
Which course is your absolute favorite to teach?
I wouldn't say one or two. I enjoy teaching all my classes, but I think if I have to pick one, I would say Signals and Systems, ENG 341 and 514. Just because I enjoy math, and that's one of the courses that has a lot of math embedded, and also it's the foundational courses for engineers to learn because it provides all the necessary math tools for them to take the advanced courses to analyze signals, to understand the system, how they function. So it's a fundamental course for students to grasp before they can use those tools to apply for engineering problem solving.
Okay, now tell this non-engineer what signals and systems means.
We have a lot of signals, for example, our heartbeat, how the music is basically a signal, sequences of signal, of course, the telephone calls that we're making, all of those are signals. The systems are the ones that processing those signals. So we have, the speaker, the sound that we're using, the headphones, these are all different type of filters or systems that process the signal that we are talking. For example, I'm talking, you're talking. All the videos are signals that we're watching, they're all signals. And the systems are the ones that are processing them. So these are the type of things that we are dealing every single day. And as an electrical engineer, we are set out to design system that can, represent those signals, simplify them, make sure that we filter, because there are a lot of environmental noise when we transmit those signals, and design communication system that can process the signals, and eventually the signal would do whatever they are intended for the end user, right? Whether they're like imaging, whether they are just listening to the songs. So all of these are the type of everyday usage for this course is about.
Thank you. That is very helpful. Is there a teacher that you've had or a student that you've taught that has changed your approach to teaching?
I wouldn't say one, but I think the most influential would be my PhD advisor. I wasn't really thinking about pursuing an academic career because I'm always curious about doing all kinds of, I was looking into industry, I was looking into different project management positions before. But I think he's the one that opens the door for me to really think about pursuing an academic career and expose me to what teaching is really about. And there are different ways teaching students, and he would challenge his class usually. So I learned a lot from him. He's not a first generation, he's a first generation immigrant. So I also learned a lot of how to approach teaching in a more inclusive way. Many of the, challenging students, asking questions, I still learn from him over the, we are still collaborating. So I'm learning from him during our group meeting to see how he asked questions during our group meeting, how he framed the research questions, and also learn a lot. Like he's constantly, improving his teaching skills, just very, very considerate about how students learn, especially during the pandemic, using new technology and like switching the whole network class online, which I was not able to do on my case, but I'm learning a lot from him, just approaches to teaching, approaches to understanding students' needs. So other than him, I'm very appreciative about all the colleagues around me. I mean, your Center for Teaching and Learning, and we did a lot of workshop together. And it's not last summer; it was 2 summers ago. We did the Summer Institute. So a lot of resources the Center for Teaching and Learning has equipped us with. It's really helpful. So I'm learning as it goes, and just discussion with colleagues from our school, from other schools, and sometimes review other colleagues' class and getting ideas. Oh, this is a wonderful way to engage students. I learned from Eric Greenberg about like you have to ask students to turn on their camera when you have a Zoom class, so that students are more engaging that way. So there, a lot of lessons learned over the years, and then a lot of meaningful discussions with colleagues. So wonderful feedback from everybody. Yeah. So in terms of students, I think what I learned over the years, students learn differently. I have one student are really good at research. However, he's just getting nervous whenever he takes the exam. So he couldn't do well in an exam, but I know he understands the concept. So they are different type of students. I think the learning module needs to also change, not just one exam and it defines whether you're good or not. So I've been trying to do is breaking down different assessment skills in the course to evaluate. So use project-based assessment, using not just like breaking down a whole concept into smaller pieces that helps us to gauge, okay, which part the student don't really get the concept, or should we spend a little bit more time on the specific concept during class?
That's part of teaching more inclusively too, right?
Yeah.
Is giving the students many different ways to show what they know.
Yeah.
How did you feel in March 2020 when we had to move to remote teaching?
I think it's uncertainty back then is, I'm trying to think what is the best way, because I really started to say, okay, I'm teaching the math intensive course and I usually use multiple blackboards in class, and how am I supposed to teach in over Zoom? But I'm very, very grateful that school provided us with the tablet. So I'm learning using whiteboard in Zoom. I think Zoom was also improving over the time that we started using them. And I started exploring using breakout rooms. So during my regular in-person class, you will see my class is more active. So students can talk and they discuss, and we do a lot of problem in class. And then I group them into different pods and I walk around and see what problem they have. So I was trying to mimic the same way as an in-person. So they can work in a smaller group and they use breakout rooms, solving problems. And I make sure that I go to each room and they can, ask me to help them out, when they can call me on Zoom to go to their room. So the challenge is some of the students don't have access to certain, technology, for example, a tablet. So it's hard for them to use a mouse to draw those equations. So that will probably a little bit challenge for some of them to, but they can dictate some of their friends to write down the equations. So I'm also teaching some of them using LaTeX, but that takes a little bit more time for them to write equations also. Right. But in general, that's has been helpful with breakout rooms, with more intimate interaction with students in a Zoom classroom.
You've been using Canvas and Zoom for the past year. right?
Yes.
So how are you using Canvas? Or how are
I
Canvas and Zoom interacting?
um, I think we have been integrating them seamlessly, because I think the second mod, I started Canvas really early. I think I was the first pilot once that switched to Canvas. Well, thanks to my advisor, because he was telling me, oh, Canvas is much better. So I learned a lot from him how to use it. I think the way that the schedule on a weekly schedule, the modules, how we can integrate I recorded all my lectures so they can be embedded into the same place. So it's a lot easier for students to find information. They can just click, if I have a demonstration video and that's going to be linked to YouTube or linked to MATLAB and the package that I gave to them. So it's a much easier way to organize the content of the course. And I really appreciate the module that the Center for Teaching and Learning provided us. There's a weekly one. I just need to fill in all the information. One thing that I'm still trying to figure out is how we can use more engaging discussion. I know there was a weekly discussion and template. So what I customized that is I changed that into topic discussion. So there are sometimes topics that needs a little more discussion among the class. So I create a topic-based discussion rather than a weekly one. So that's the change that I made for online discussion for students. Sometimes they do, but sometimes students may not use it that much. So that is one thing I'm trying to see whether there's an incentive for them to get more engaged online that way. The other thing that I think it's useful is you can ask them to be creative, making their own headshots in the either Zoom and Canvas. They are very, very good at social media, which I admire them for that. So they can use them to be creative, and sometimes they write bios there. It's like you can write anything that you want to share. So they are very creative about those as well.
And how do you think the students have been responding? Have they liked the way you've structured the course? Do you hear from them to do more, to do less?
The request that I hear from students is they wanted to do more problems in class. So with remote learning, one of the advantages that we can record. So of course we have to cover the theory part. So I try to shorten the theory, make sure we have enough time to do more problems in class so they can watch the recording multiple times if they missed some part during the class. So that's really helpful. I also have a supplemental instruction session for students so they have more time with a supplemental instructor to work on additional problems after class. So they get to interact more even after class. So they do have, I do have students coming to office hours, and then sometimes they wanted to discuss some problems, and sometimes they wanted to talk about their future career, and someone wanted to become a teacher. So there's some more like private discussion. I usually come to class 10, 15 minutes early. I stay a few more minutes just in case someone wants to ask question. So that gives them a little bit more relaxed environment, not just during lecture. The other thing that I think is helpful is know all your students' names. So I call them by name. Sometimes I call them to answer questions in class. I think they very nicely, and I think they think the class is engaging.
So sometimes in class, there's this moment where everything comes together just right. And it's almost like magic, because you and the students are all together and fully engaged and going in the same direction. And it can be really just transformative. Can you tell us about one of those moments?
So the
either pre or post pandemic.
Sure. I make sure I have the student take on the driver's seat once during the semester. So I have them pick one property of Fourier transform. So they will be, they have to prepare for their lecture plan. They record their lecture and they will do a live session during class. So this semester, it seems have been taken really well because I think I almost started a fan page. So there's one group that did really well. I think they're doing a time scaling property, and like everybody in the classroom started chatting and like they were just, so that's when I see, okay, they're really engaged in class and they really enjoy listening to their peers lecture and they were asking them questions. I think that makes me really happy. And I think this is the active learning moment that we have always been looking for. So the lecture for the students, I don't want to misleading everybody. It takes a lot of time. So you have to work with students. So they form a group. You help them identify the topic they wanted to lecture. And I work with them to rehearse their lecture, make sure the material is correct. So that's a little bit time consuming at certain times if you're really busy with proposal and research papers. But I think when you see how excited they are, I see, students do get a lot of nervousness when they're presenting, but it helps them really gain confidence when they see, okay, I can be a professor for one day, and being able to elaborate on a complex concept and then make them understood. So I think that's one moment. I think I really enjoy seeing them and enjoying themselves in class.
Has it changed how you teach in other classes?
I haven't really, what I've been trying to do with other classes is to engage them more on like learning what is happening in the industry. So I ask students to search for the most recent topics on research. For example, in terms of computer network class, I would ask them to, because the textbook is not really up to date in terms of what is really out, like happening out in the industry, out in the research realm. So I asked them to look for the most updated topics on, what kind of hacking people have been doing the network, ransomware. So there are a lot of writing assignments, literature review, research assignment. So that's not asking to lecture, but also engage them to look for information and understand the field rather than just, answering questions from the exams.
Right. Yeah, I guess that recent ransomware of the pipeline, the
Yes.
oil pipeline, must have been a great opportunity. Something
so
good came out of it.
It's a teachable moment that we usually say.
Right, right. So as we start to move into a post-COVID world, which of your innovations do you think you will keep? What do you think will stick around?
I envision this to be more of a hybrid way of engaging students. I think online still cannot replace in-person. There's the social factors, there's the interpersonal communication cues that we do not really get over. But I think this Zoom can provide, the hybrid learning can provide many students access to learning. For example, some student told me that this is so great because they don't have to spend 2.5 hours in commute time, because those are just wasted time, where they can spend time, reading assignment and doing some additional problems. But I think some of the students do need, people learn differently. Some students probably prefer more of an in-person contact. So if we can provide a learning collaborative space in school while also supporting them over this Zoom and Canvas hybrid mode, doesn't matter where they are, as long as they're learning. I think that's our ultimate goal. And we have to encourage them to explore more information on their own. So how do they do this lifelong learning to inspire them, to motivate them? Okay, this is an exciting field. So I think that's, it doesn't matter the delivery mode. I think it's to how to engage them in their own, taking on their own learning. I think that's the ultimate goal.
One thing you had talked about before this conversation was practicing empathy and compassion to get through the pandemic as a community. How do you see that changing how you teach going forward? What have you learned about your students in the pandemic that you might not have known otherwise?
I think there's a lot of challenges that we usually don't get to touch, or like especially, you know, when you just go to class and then afterwards they don't talk about their personal lives. And during the pandemic, I've heard the impact for many students from their family, because sometimes they may have family member gotten sick, or they, you know, family members like jobs lost, or, you know, there are different type of difficulty that they may be facing. I think it sometimes feel helpless to, there's like, you have no way to help them out. The only thing that you can do is to provide an environment that they can talk about it, and also just be supportive of what they are going through. I appreciate a lot more about their resilience, because if I hear some of the story that happened to me, I don't know if I can carry through.
Right. So I'd like to wrap up these conversations with recommendations. Is there a particular app or a technology tool that you've been using that's improved your teaching that other faculty might like to know about?
Sure. I think most of our colleagues probably are using Canvas or Zoom one way or the other. Breakout room that I use a lot. For my class, I use MATLAB visualization tool, so the student can visualize how a signal actually look like, and they get the chance to create music using MATLAB, so that they learn the notes, and then they learn how to compose the music on their own and add noise and then design filters, and then so they can hear what they created, they can see what they generated, like spectrogram and all the information. The other tool that I think I promise I show you this is I have this virtual background. So this is, I'll give you a preview of my class. So this is what I use for every week for my class virtual background. So I give an outline of what we are going to cover during each week. When I have the recordings, the student will be able to see what is going to be covered and what is going to happen in this. So this is going to change every week about the content of the lecture. So this is one tool I think it's helpful for me, at least, to give student an outline, what is going to happen during the lecture during the week. So I think this is a tool called Canva. You can customize your content and just download as a virtual background. I didn't realize how interesting this could be until I accidentally left it on with one of my students, and then, oh, this is so cool. How did you make it? So this is what I did. I think may be helpful for other faculty to think about as well. So this is mimicking what we really teach in person. So we write, okay, this is our outline for this week. So it had a sense of reality, hopefully.
It's very clever. I knew about Canva, and it never occurred to me to do anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it's terrific. Cecilia, I can't thank you enough for taking time to join us today.
It has been wonderful talking to you, and I hope everybody stays safe and we are almost ready to get back on campus.
Yes. So we've been speaking today with Cecilia Dong, Associate Professor in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department of the College of Engineering and Computing Sciences as part of the Great Teaching Series. This conversation has been recorded and will be available on the Center for Teaching and Learning webpage, nyit.edu/CTL. If you'd like to be featured in the Great Teaching Series, please email the Center for Teaching and Learning at ctl@nyit.edu, or better yet, fill out the form at bit.ly/great-teaching. Thank you.
Thank you.